Hello everyone, I am back today to show you a new method of binding a book, of making your own journals and booklets. I previously demonstrated a method using tape, the tape binding method. But in my quest for information on art journaling and how to bind books and anything that there is to know about books and binding and making your own, I've come across this way. It was either a website that I saw or a YouTube video. Might have been one out of one of the many books that I have on art journaling that I saw this technique, but I wanted to share it with you. I also want you to know that it is something that I learned from others. It is stitching a book using a sewing needle and some thread or twine. So in order to do this method, you need just a few things. Some thread, obviously. You need a needle. Piercing tool. I'm using the piercing tool that came in my Bind It All kit. A pencil. 3 strips of bookbinding tape or fabric or ribbon. I'm using ribbon. The tutorial I learned from, the woman used fabric. Or you can use bookbinding tape, which I understand is not tape, it's not sticky, but that's what they call it. And then obviously you need the paper that you're going to use for your book. And you need a piece of paper that is as tall as your book. My book is going to be 6 inches wide by 9 inches tall. So I need my piece of scrap paper to be 9 inches tall. And I've made the scrap paper 2.5 inches wide. The first thing I want to do is show you how to make your hole punching template, which is this piece of scrap paper that is as tall as your book. You first need to fold it in half lengthwise. Once you do that, just flatten it back out. Then you need to take your ruler and you're going to mark a spot in the crease that is a 1/2 inch down from both ends. So we'll do that now. There and there. Then you take the same piece of paper and you fold it in half. Then you fold it in half again. You want to make your creases pretty tight, but you don't have to use your bone folder. You just need to make your creases tight. And unfold it. From there, you take your bookbinding tape and center it across the creases that you just made. These creases. Should be 3 creases. Center it across there to get the location of the other holes. And what you do once you have it centered is you want to make a mark on either side of the ribbon. On the right side of the ribbon and the left side of the ribbon. Then you move it down to your next crease, center it, and make your marks. Move it to your last crease, centering it, and make your marks. Now you need to take an old telephone book or some other large, thick book. I am using my Journal Junkies Workshop book that shows you how much I like journals and books. And you just need to open it to a center page. Take your piece of paper that you're been using, that you just marked, and you take your piercing tool, place the paper where it's folded inside of the crease of the book. Take your piercing tool, and then you just want to punch holes where you've made your marks. Whoops, this one. Okay, I've made my holes. Hope that you can see that. Should be 8 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you can just lay that to the side and move the book out of the way. You'll need the book again, but not right now. The next thing you want to do is take the paper that you're going to use for your book. I'm making a 6x9 book. So my paper started out being 9 by 12. What I have here are called signatures. Stacks of paper folded together. They're called signatures. And to make your signature, you take your paper, you fold it in half, and you use your bone folder and you give it a good crease. Now, I've already made my signatures. I didn't think that you needed to see me fold paper in half and crease it. I think we all understand that part of the video. Because I'm using watercolor paper, I'm making a watercolor journal to carry with me in my tote bag so that whenever the inspiration hits me, I can pull out my watercolors and get to doodling and drawing. So I'm using watercolor paper, which is very heavy. Since it's very heavy paper, I'm only using 3 sheets for each signature. This signature, one signature, gives me 12 pages because I have folded them in half. I'm using 3 signatures in my book, so that I'm going to have a book that is 36 pages of drawing and inspirational space. So I made my 3 signatures. As I said, you didn't have to watch me fold and crease paper. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my book, or in your case it may be a phone book. I'm going to take my first signature, place it in the crease of the book. I'm going to take my hole punching template that I created earlier, the first thing we did, and put it inside of the book, making sure that it is flush up against the top of the book and the bottom of the book. You want your holes even, you want them in the correct places, and you want each of your signatures to have the holes line up. And now that we have it all lined up, all your pages are lined up, you just make your holes in your signatures. What I like to do is once I punch my holes, to make it easier to sew them, I just go back through the hole with my piercing tool to make sure it's a nice hole. Makes it easier to get your needle and thread through when it's time for that part. And you do this with all of your signatures. For me, I have 3 signatures, so I'll be doing it 3 times. You want to make sure you press firmly because you want your piercing tool to go through all of the pages of your signature. And again, just widen the hole to make it easier to sew. And my last signature. Now remember, I'm only using 3 signatures, so technically I'm done with this piece of paper. But because I know that in the future I'll make another 6x9 book, I'm going to keep this. So I made my template out of watercolor paper, actually, because it had some body to it, some stiffness, so it'll be around for a while. So I'll keep that for the next books that I make that are 6x9. My template is already ready. Okay, we can move our book out of the way. And we can bring our first signature into view because that's what we're going to work on now. The first stitching Your piece of thread or twine should be something with some strength. I'm using 100% natural hemp cord. You can use dental floss, embossing floss, all kinds of thread. You just want to make sure that it is something that is not going to break. If the thread breaks, your book will come apart. So you don't want that to happen to you at any point down the line. And just simply thread your needle. You won't have to make a knot in the end. And I should say, before we thread the needle, your piece of string should be at least 4 times the height of the book. And then you want to add a little bit to that even still. It's better to have too much thread than not enough. Thread your needle, you're not making a knot. And you start sewing. Starting with your first hole, stick it through, pull it through the center, and you want to pull it through, leaving a good amount of length on the tail. I would say a good 6 inches. And then you just go in, because you started on the outside, so your thread is now on the inside. You want to go from the inside to the outside. And you want to do this all the way down the book. I'm sorry, all the way down the signature. This is not a book yet. Make sure your holes are lined up so that it's easy to sew. Whew. My holes are not cooperating with me today. They cooperate from the inside but not from the outside. And you don't want to pull your stitching too tight at this point, because there's another step that you need to complete before you finish this course. When you have gotten to the opposite end from where you started, you should have 3 loops on the outside of your book. Hope that you can see that, of the signature, I should say. 3 loops here. That's where these 3 pieces of book tape come into play. You want to put them inside of these loops so that they are held against the end of the book by the thread that you're using. Once you have your 3 pieces of book binding in, you want to pull your thread tight, not too tight. You don't want to rip your holes. You don't want to make your paper buckle, but it should be snug. Very snug, tight pull. Now we take our second signature. Make sure the pages are lined up well. And we put that right on top of the one we just completed. And we start sewing again from the inside. But this time when you bring the needle in and through, up. Big boo-boo, started on the wrong side. Wrong end of the book. Bring your ribbon through on the same end that you ended with. Once you get that ribbon through on this end, you want to take the needle, put it between the 2 signatures, Not in a hole, just between the two signatures. Then you want to bring it on the other side, the top of the book here. Pull it out, which creates a loop. Once I get my thread pulled, creates a loop here. Then what you do is you take your needle and you pull it up inside of the loop, pull it through, and you pull your loop and your thread taut. And you want to make sure that this is taut. And then you go on to sewing down the rest through the rest of the holes like we did in the previous course, in the first course. And we're almost there at the end. And you must make sure that your book tape is being caught by the thread you're using. Pull it taut again. Again, not too tight, but you want it to be taut. And then on this end, since this is our second course, we have the tail that we started with. You want to tie a square knot. Again, tie it taut. It should be taut up against the back of the book. And today, for some reason, I cannot tie a knot. But you want this to be snug. Keeps the signatures together. Once you're done tying your knot, you can trim this tail. Not the piece still connected to your needle, the tail. And you should trim it to about 1/4 inch above the knot. Then we're back because we have another course, another signature to add. So we lay that on top, and we start again. And we sew to the other end. We make our first stitch. Then remember, because we've attached two courses, two signatures, we have to go in between the two signatures with our needle, out the top, pull the thread taut, make a loop, put your needle through the loop, and pull taut. And then you continue to sew down through the other end of your book again. And make sure your needle does not go through your book tape like mine just did. Glad I caught that before sewing it all the way on. Make sure your book tape is caught in all of the loops. And we're at the end again. Make sure your thread is pulled taut. This time, you're going to take your needle. You're going to go in between the first and second. The very first one, the very second one that you did. Go in between those, out the top, making a loop. Put your needle through the loop. Bring it up and through and pull taut. Now you're going to go through the top signature and your middle signature. You're not going in a hole. Again, you're going in between the two signatures. Out the top, which creates a loop that you then stick your needle up and through and you pull taut. Because this is the last course for me, the last signature I'm adding, I repeat that step again, making a good solid knot. My knot's in. I can remove my needle, trim my thread about 1/4 inch above the knot. There you have it. Your book is bound. Now coming apart, you can flip page by page. Last step, which they did not explain why this is, and the only thing that I can come up with in looking at other stitch bound books is they take a piece of book tape. In my case, again, I'm using ribbon, and I must have misplaced a piece that I had for this. But they take a piece of ribbon, book tape, and they adhere it to the spine of the book. So here's a piece of ribbon. It has to be the length of the book, height of the book. Here's where I did all the sewing and the binding, and I will adhere the piece of ribbon here. And I just use Scotch quick dry glue to get it on. Put a good coat on there, seal it down. I hold it down here upside down with some pressure until I can lift up the book and the book tape is still attached to the end, and then I set it to the side to let it dry. I'll show you an example. Here's one I created earlier that has the ribbon adhered. It's still drying. It's just been a few minutes for this. So once it's completely dry, I'll let it dry overnight. Then I'll trim the ends off to make it even with the book. So that's it. You have bound the book. I can show you how to make a hardcover for your book, which will come in the next video. So stay tuned for the next video that shows you how to make the hardcover for your book, and then you can have your very own self-bound journal that is also hardcover, and that can stand up to some inking and painting and water and watercolors and all things fun and pretty and paper related. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to bind a book using the sewing method, and come back for the tutorial on the cover, making a hardcover for it. Thank you.